So in this chapter, we're going to look at how to actually take data or data sets and actually find a way to numerically describe the data. So we will actually be looking at what we call numerical descriptive statistics. These are numbers that summarize the sample and are intended to estimate the population parameters. So remember, statistics are numbers that are calculated from samples. Parameters are numbers that are calculated from populations. We're going to talk about both symbols we use and how you would calculate both, but realize that in most cases you are doing sample data and not doing parameter, not doing population values. So let's start off looking at what we would use a lot for when we have qualitative variables. So if we happen to have a qualitative variable, one of the things you might want to look at is a proportion of the or is a part or a percentage of the whole group, whether it's the population or sample, that has a certain characteristic. So you may want to look at how many people like the color blue, prefer the color blue, how many people like Star Trek, how many people like some political or members of some political party. So you would have your data set, which would contain all of their qualitative values, whether it be like their favorite color, whatever colors there were, you list all the colors, and then you count how many are like the number blue. And so you look at the number of trials you have. That's how big your sample is or how big your population is. It's a number of data points you have. And then R is the number of successes you would have. So in other words, the number of objects with that certain characteristic you're interested in. And your population proportion would be P for proportion is equal to R, which is the number of successes, over N, which is the size of your population. Because we don't always have the population, we're going to look at a sample proportion. The symbol for that, to make it look different than this P, so you know, hey, this one's from the sample and this one's from the population, we put a little hat over it. So we call it P hat. And it would be, again, the number of successes, error being the number of successes, over N, which is the number of trials in that sample, or the number of data points. And that's how you calculate your sample proportion. That's how you calculate your population proportion. Again, normally you are doing the sample proportion. So as an example, let's say I would ask a group of people how many are fans of The Living Dead. I would then record yes or no's to that question. Or I would ask you what's your favorite TV show, and you would write down we'd write down everybody's responses, and then we'd count how many Walking Deads there were. So let's say out of a group of 26 people, so my N is 26, I got 12 of them to actually like The Walking Dead. If this was just a particular group and I wasn't looking at anything more, then I could actually say this is my population value. If I didn't know that and I was trying to make a decision about a bigger group, this would be a sample value. So the proportion is always R, which is how many you actually found out of your total. Remember, this is going to be a percentage, or can be written as percentage. So you always want the smaller number over the bigger number. You can either leave it as this fraction, which I prefer, or as this decimal, or as this percent.